it's Kristen with Simply a Steward, and today I am back. So first I'm going to preface this by saying I plan on filming several videos today, so if you see me in the same shirt, not doing the whole switcheroo, but it is what it is. You all know what it's like to be a busy mom. But I know I've had some people who've been looking for my reviews as well as interested in what my curriculums are coming up. So today I'm going to share with you first my last review of my first graders, my son who is in mostly first grade. If you have followed me before, you know that he is a little bit behind. We know that we don't really focus on grades as much in homeschooling, but that I would kind of place him between like a kindergarten and first grade level. If he had gone to a brick and mortar school, I wouldn't have put him in kindergarten the year he would have gone. I would have held him back a year. But since we were homeschooling, we were able to start on some things and kind of start building a little bit more. So he's kind of in between. He's a little behind, particularly on reading. So that will reflect in some of the stuff we did this year. But I did want to get this up and share it with you guys. I already have put my last year's, again, third grader, but she does some third and fourth grade work, and my fifth grader from last year. Their reviews are already up. If you guys are interested, you guys can go check those out. So this is my third and final review for this year, and then I have new curriculum coming out, and what I've chosen, I'm going to go ahead and get started on those. I'm still waiting on a couple things, especially for my older kids, but so I'm just going to do it reverse. I'm going to start with my younger students that time and share with you guys that. So without further ado, I'm going to get on to what we used for first grade this year. You guys might want to grab a cup of coffee because I find out that these reviews sometimes get a little bit lengthy because I'm long-winded and I like to talk. So the first thing that we changed majorly this year was what we were doing for reading. He did do Explode the Code last year, but we had started originally with Horizons, and Horizons did not work for us. So we switched this year to Daily Phonics by Evan Moore, and I found this book incredible for my struggling reader, particularly. So this is the type that you get and you can make copies out of it. It's like the teacher manual, so it also has some guidance in there for the teacher if you need it. You'll see each week has this guidance over here, and then here's an example page. My son loved that it was very short, it was very sweet, and it was very to the point. He doesn't like to spend a ton of time doing bookwork. That's just not his thing. Even getting him through a page like this took a little bit of effort. So, but I think it is important that he spends some time focusing on reading. So we did make it through this book. We did this book in its entirety, which is the first book in 2 years he's actually completed in its entirety. So I was really proud of him. I really feel like this book, especially if you have a struggling reader, is excellent. They did have it in grade 1. I do not know for certain which other grades they have it in. Actually, looking on the back, it says grade 3 on here, so at least up through grade 3 they have this book, which would then be appropriate. It just works through each letter sound, and then it works through like blends, and it starts to work on digraphs and trigraphs and all those types of things. Actually, I'm not sure that it made it quite into trigraphs. But I really love this book. I would really recommend this. He really learned a lot from this. What we did this year, I found myself surprised at how much he was actually starting to read more, and so I've been very impressed. We also stuck with Explode the Code. This is something that we picked up last year when Horizons was not working for us at all, and I found that he really enjoyed it. So I picked this up at the beginning of the year. He did it for a little bit and he kind of lost interest, and so we flipped over to this and we did it pretty much in its entirety when we completed it, and we were working just a little bit extra for like some summer work and weren't doing like a ton of book work. He picked this back up again and really started to enjoy it again. So this has been one of my favorite things. I have heard a lot of people say that they use this almost as like a complete phonics type curriculum, as well as like a spelling for younger grades, so that's a consideration. But if you've never seen one of these books, they're extremely cheap, which is one of the definite pros to it. They're only a few bucks, maybe like $5. I can't remember exactly. And they have things like here where you have to see the picture and read these words and see which one would correlate to the picture. Over here, you're reading, there's this word bank and the picture here, and you have to match the words. So again, you have to read these words, but they're all very simple words. I know they're backwards because of the way my camera is, but you can see gas, black, lock. These aren't very long words. They're very simple words. Here, they have a picture, and then you have to circle the sounds. So for glass, it would be the GL, then the A, then the SS, and then you have to write it here. And over on this side, you have to read these short sentences and mark yes or no. So can a big clock tick? Yes or no? And you'll know, really as a parent, you'll know, you'll know as soon as you read them if they were able to actually read them, because if he was on a day where he was just checking things, you could tell. So very seldom was it like a slightly different word that confused him. Here are two sentences he had to read and mark which one was what correlated to the picture over here. So you can see just simple worksheets. When we did this last year, he was only doing 1 page at a time. 1 page, that was it. He couldn't make it through more than that. He would melt down. And so we don't push that hard because we want him to enjoy reading. This year he was easily able to do 2 or 3 of these pages before he even cared. So that was a nice bonus. I really love these books. They go up through level 8. I think he worked on level 2 and I believe level 3 this year. I just kind of picked one of things to bring out to share with you guys. And then the last thing that we used for phonics this year were the Usborne My First Reading Library. So last year we used a lot of Bob books. It's just what I had been accustomed to. It's what my girls they had used some K-12 readers and some Bob books. They really enjoyed them. My son had no interest. They were so boring to him. And so it really didn't help us at all. Sorry, speaking of my little son, that was him. He wanted to come out and play. So anyway, so we did try these books, and these books were way more interesting. He really seemed to enjoy them. If you have not seen these books, we got them. If you follow Abby over at Rooted in Rest, you should definitely check her out. Her page or her channel is just absolutely amazing. But last year, she is also an Usborne consultant, and last year she ran a program through Usborne about doing, like, they did like a readathon where they read and they were able to get sponsors from like their grandparents and things like that, their aunts and uncles, and they were able to use that money towards books. So we purchased these books last year and they were great. They were such a worthwhile investment after her suggestion also. But this one is Pirate Pat, and if you open these books, you will see, I don't know how reflective it is. Yeah, you can see. This is smaller writing and this is much larger writing. So these are I read, you read books. And so the parent reads this side and the student reads this side. And because the parent is able to read half of the storyline, it makes it so much more intriguing to the student. It's no more, the cat sat. Those books get very boring for a student. So there's a more in-depth, I mean, these aren't super in-depth, but more in-depth and more interesting storyline. They're also very colorful. Usborne does so many things right. And as you can see here, they go, they move up quite a bit. Now, we did not make it to purple. I do believe that the purple ones, let me check out the last one here, are pretty much all you read per se. So when you get to the purple, they're all the bigger. So it steps up, and by the time you get to purple, they're able to read the books all by themselves. We did make it through the green, the I read, you read, but we did not make it beyond that. So we're just going to keep on working on these. But there's something that he actually really enjoyed and really started to read, which was really neat. Also, something I didn't share in the back of these is in the back here, they have just some simple puzzles. So kind of like reading comprehension type things that you're able to ask. So the first puzzle says, look at the pictures together and try retelling the story of what happened in those pictures. And And then at the end it says, why don't you talk about what they might all do next? And so it's just some interaction about what was going on. This says choose the right word for the picture, and so they have to do some reading of just simple words, which one matches the picture. And the last puzzle is find the words that rhyme. So you can talk about rhyming, and you can see the words here. We can read them, and you can, by looking, visually see how they end in the same sounds, like A-N and A-N. So just some different things that are added in, and those are in the back of every single book the whole way up through the very end. So I thought that was just like a neat little bonus as well. When you finish that really boring Bob the Cat Sat book, there's nothing in there for that either. So that was a nice little bonus, kind of just some reading comprehension, because we've been really focusing on the phonics part of the reading. So that is what he did for phonics. I'm going to set these down. These Usborne books are so heavy, which is why I look so awkward picking them up and putting them down. So on to the rest of this. For I didn't want to overload him this year, but I did want him to understand that now that he's beyond kindergarten, that he's going to need to do a little bit more work. And I don't say that because I think everything has to be book work, but my girls will do work no problem. Even I've noticed that with my upcoming kindergartner, she seems to be doing things. He just is not the type who wants to do school at all, even if it's hands-on learning. It just is what it is. So we focus on a lot of other things with him. You know, he's loved to learn things through like working on a dump truck and all kinds of things, working in the garden and those types of things. But in order to get him to do some of these things, I did want to at least encourage him and put some of these things into our daily routine, so he was a little more used to it. Honestly, he doesn't like to do chores either. He just has that kind of personality. He's doesn't want to do things. He just wants to play all day, and he's a kid, so that's what happens. So we did implement some more things this year, even though he didn't do them in their entirety. He did do quite a bit of this book, and again, it was another Evan Moore book. I really do love their products. Anything I'd link below will be an affiliate link, just because I've become affiliate of them, but only after trying their products and loving them so much personally. So that is the reason. But total disclaimer, because I like to put that out there. So this is grammar and punctuation, and it is for grade 1. You can always tell because it has this bright colored cover. There are ones, I don't believe of the grammar necessarily, but of their workbooks in general. Do I have one? I don't have one on me. I'm missing his science. Let me look. I don't know where he put his from last year, but this is his science for this year. And so you can see the difference in the cover. And the cover is, this one is just like a very cheap, like $7 workbook, but it's made for just the student to do. This one is made so that you can make copies and use this in the future. So I'll be able to use this with my upcoming student that I still have as well. So that all is said, this book, again, very big, bold, basic type, basic worksheets. I don't like anything that's too complex, especially at this age. So each book, or each unit, each week has a page here that has like some basic learning rule or instruction. So this says a sentence that tells something needs a period at the end, and then it has these sentences, and they all have periods. Now that means that we're going to be working on periods for this week. So the next five lessons here will all be focused on periods. And so some of these things are like cut them out and paste. Some of them are fill in the blanks. Some of them are circling things. All kinds of different things. But you can just see, and then it'll move on to the next rule. So it's very basic. And so we just got through some of that this year. He didn't touch on any of this last year, although he was in kindergarten. It really wasn't important. I didn't find we had only done nouns and verbs last year. That was it, nothing else. And some fun hands-on stuff that I had. I went to school for education, actually, so I just had some things laying around that I had used years ago that I pulled out that we used. But so we wanted to add some more of that. This is what we did. He really seemed to enjoy this. I think he was more willing to do Evan Moore work than he was to do anything else that we did. So I don't know if it's just that particular student, because my other girls, they do like Evan Moore, but not nearly as much as him. It just seems to be the one workbook that he will do on his own. So that being said, since I have this here, I'm going to share it with you. He did Evan Moore Science as well. I don't know what happened to his science workbook from last year, but this is the grade 2, but his was obviously grade 1 for last year. Now I will say, even looking at this, the writing in this is smaller and there's more work per page. So I feel bad that I don't have the first grade book for you, but I don't know where it was. But here's a basic glimpse of what Evan Moore's workbook looks like, and it's just a basic little, I keep saying the word basic, I'm sorry. It's just a little paragraph up here that you can read. These bold print letters are over here in the vocabulary section, so you can read the vocabulary words, and then there are some questions down here. Again, often it's in the first grade one, it was matching and circling. It was filling in, and usually it was just filling in those vocabulary words because those were the new words. They would ask a question like, a plant needs, and it would be sun, water, so it would just be the basics. He really loved this book. Like, he begged to do science. It was the one thing he asked to do every single day, even if I didn't have plans of doing it. So he really did like this. I don't recall anything in the first grade book. And I know, looking through the second grade book, I don't recall anything that, if you're a Christian, that you might have a problem with. I know that my older daughter did the third grade book last year. I think she did the third grade book, and there was some things in there that just didn't quite line up with our Christian faith, and it was just very simple for us to mark those pages off, and she didn't have to do them. But it is not a Christian curriculum, so you will or may run into those in your book. So if you do go with the Evan Moore Science, I just encourage you that if you are a Christian, to kind of flip through it and see if there's anything that doesn't really align with your beliefs that you might not want your student working on. So heads up, that is in there. So the next thing, again, Evan Moore, I'm telling you, we did so much Evan Moore this year, and he just loved it, was the beginning geography. So we did no geography really last year. We did, again, like we did the nouns and the verbs, we did a few sheets that I randomly had laying around about like rivers and plains, just some random little stuff, but it wasn't anything that we put much effort into, I'll be honest. It was just some very basics kind of at the end of the year. So this worked a lot more on like our map skills. We did a lot of map skills in this for about the first half of the year. Pretty much was map skills of all different kinds, learning about grids, learning about directions. So here's a page of like the grids, learning about keys. Again, this is a page where you can make all the copies out of. And again, when you have the copy pages, you don't want to use the book as it is. You don't want to buy this book and not make copies. And that is because they have pages that you're going to cut, and on the back is something else. So you really do want to make the copies. Don't buy this book with the intention that you are going to just have your student use it as is. Even like if you only have one student, you're like, I'll just buy it and they can just use it. You're going to have to still make copies of a lot of pages, or you're going to end up destroying half of the curriculum when they're cutting and pasting. So just a heads up on that. Now, in the back, they also, again, of all of these, they offer an answer key for the parents. I feel like at this age, you don't really need an answer key, but sometimes when you have 5 or 6 students and you're trying to correct everybody's work, it's just easiest to kind of look at an answer key and mark it off without actually reading everything yourself. So that is offered if that's something that's important to you. But then the second half, it also worked on habitats and like features. Again, back to land and water features. So here are mountains and going over the parts of a mountain, those types of things. So again, this was another thing he really enjoyed, just like the science. This was something he really liked to do and asked to do. So might be a consideration, goes over the continents. Those were all things that usually I go over in kindergarten, but he just wasn't at that point. So we did do this. I'm going to be sharing with you guys my upcoming kindergarten's curriculum, and I plan to do this as well. So we do really enjoy that book. So if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, you know that we love Horizons math. Most of my students do this. I have one student that doesn't. She is a struggling math learner, but the rest of my students do. So here is just an example. You can see the pages. I love that it is colorful. I love that it is a spiral curriculum, so it keeps coming back to concepts that maybe students haven't mastered. If they have mastered it, I will say Horizons has a lot of problems, in my opinion, as they get older. I think the curriculum for kindergarten is just fine. First grade's not too bad, but once you get beyond that, I feel like there's a lot of problems. So if they've mastered something and you really feel like they don't need it, you can always cross it out. But I do love the fact that it comes back to some of those concepts, because I feel like some of those things you just don't do and you forget. So, for example, my oldest, when when we started schooling, I had placed her in a cyber school instead of traditionally homeschooling, and they would do a mastery based thing. So she would do rounding, and then if she had to round to do like addition later in another grade or another semester or something, she couldn't remember how to do the rounding part. Like the adding part, yes, but the rounding part she could not remember how to do, because they had done that before, they were done with it, and they moved on. This just keeps coming back to those types of concepts. So I really love that about that. It is a Christian-based curriculum. I don't find a I can't say I don't find a ton. I in the younger grades, I don't find a ton of things that are particularly faith-based. Like this says Lee had 5 baseball cards and Gene gave him 9 more. How many does he have now? So those are kind of basically the word problems. But as you get into the older grades, I definitely noticed Jesus being incorporated into a lot of their curriculum, which for my family suits us perfectly. If that does not suit your family, that is just a disclaimer that you might want to look for a different curriculum. This one might not be the best fit for your family. So I do love, like I said, I love that it's colorful. I love that it is a spiral, and I do feel like as they get older, there are a lot of problems. So I will say that I often go through my older students and I actually kind of mark out some of the problems they don't have to do. I even noticed myself doing that towards the end of book 2 for my son. So just a heads up, if your student's feeling like it's a little bit too much work, I do feel like this has a bit more problems than some other curriculums. So, but I still love it. I absolutely love it. So the last thing I'm going to share with you was a group subject, and it is Mystery of History. So I'm so sad that this is going on our shelf for now. We are going to shelve this, but I did love this curriculum. So for different reasons of mostly my son struggling and needing to put our attention and our focus in different times of our day and different places, we're going to move away from group subjects for our upcoming school year. But this was absolutely one of my favorite history programs I've ever been through. I think I actually learned a lot from this. So it's a very basic setup. Oop, one of my pages came out, I guess, and when it got put in the wrong place. So it'll show you in the front, it shows you the plans, but I just want to share with you like a lesson. This, if you are not familiar with this, you can probably tell from the very front with the cross, this is a very biblical based curriculum. And B, this is a chronological, so it begins at the beginning of time and it moves, so for instance, because this is Christian based, it begins with creation and then it moves through more or less present time. Now this is volume 1, so it is creation to the resurrection. And then it has, there are 4 consecutive volumes. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can do these, they're made to do over and over again. So if you start in first grade, you would do them first, second, third, and fourth, and then you would start over to them 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then again through high school 9 through 12. And so your student would essentially go through the entire series 3 times, and they would be able to build upon that knowledge every time. By the end, they should really start to master it quite a bit. So in the beginning, it's kind of more just introductory. But because of that, there is a lesson to read, which you can see. It's this page and then the top part of this page. It's fairly short and sweet. It's not an extensive amount of reading. And if you've got a high school student, it's not much reading at all. Obviously, for a younger student, it is a few minutes worth of reading, but still not much. And then here we have activities, and they divide them into younger, middle, and older students. So some of the activities, like I had a fifth grader this year, some of the activities I felt like maybe she should just do the younger version. And some of them I moved her and even my third grader up to what the middle students were doing, and the younger student could do the younger activity. Some of them were basic things. This one says create a creation booklet. So they were able to grab some plain paper, fold it into, a book, and make the days of creation. So what was created on each day. There are all kinds of hands-on activities that are involved in this. There's research that's involved in it. If you have older students, you can do so many things with this, and you can definitely make it a group subject that spans. So if you have kids in all grades from, elementary up through high school, this is something that you can use for everybody. So this was absolutely one of my favorite curriculums. When you get to the end after I think it's three lessons, there is a review, and then they also have some some kind of activities. So beyond the regular activity, I should say, more like a quiz, I guess you could say. So here's an example. The quizzes are not hard. They are often fill in the blank or true and false, those types of things. So if you have a high school student, super, super easy. But there are opportunities in the activity section to do research and write an essay and do all of those types of things as well. So this is absolutely, like I said, one of my favorite curriculums. I will be shelving this rather than selling it. A lot of my curriculums that we've went through and maybe weren't fitting us even at the time we went ahead and sold. This I'm going to shelve with the hopes that we may come back to this one day. So like I said, it's just not working for us right now. So that is everything that my first grader used this year. And if you guys like these kinds of videos, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I love sharing with you guys out in the homeschool community. I have found so much information. You guys are a wealth out there in the comments, and as well as watching so many other mamas out there who are sharing what they're using. That's really where I learned most of what I'm doing, just their ability to share, and I really appreciate that, and I hope that I can give back by doing the same thing. So I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye.